All right, let's dive deep into this idea of self-esteem, huh? We're going to be looking at Marc Reklau's book, Love Yourself First, today. And, it's something we all want, right? More confidence, feeling good about ourselves, but it can feel like a pretty big mountain to climb. One of the things that really hit me right in the introduction of this book is how Reklau connects self-esteem to, well, practically everything. Like, it's not just how we feel, it's our relationships, our work, how happy we are, even, get this, how well we sleep.
It is interesting how he doesn't frame this as just like surface level self-help stuff, you know what I mean? He actually argues that a lack of self-esteem is like at the core of a lot of psychological issues, so it suddenly becomes this really important topic.
It really does. It makes you kind of rethink things. And the way he contrasts someone with low self-esteem is feeling like, quote, a victim of circumstances versus someone with high self-esteem is, quote, living entirely in the present is really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And that actually brings us to something else Rekla really emphasizes, which is taking control. He says, like, no matter what's happened to us in the past, we can choose to rewrite our own story.
That's very much in line with the whole growth mindset idea, isn't it? We're not stuck. We can change and grow.
Exactly. And one of the things he suggests that I found kind of surprising was he says we should work on the concepts we like the least.
Oh,
Which is interesting because it kind of goes against what we naturally want to do, right?
it does. It makes you think. So, all right, how do we actually make this happen? Reklo gives a ton of practical tips. One thing he keeps coming back to is this idea of owning our actions.
So he's saying like stop complaining and really take responsibility for the decisions we make. And a big part of that is breaking free from like listening to people who don't actually like walk the talk, you know?
Oh, and the story he tells about the overweight person giving diet advice. I mean, come on, that was hilarious and so true.
That really drives home the point about self-reliance, doesn't it? Like making our own WN mistakes is part of how we learn and grow, not just blindly following someone else.
So true. Another big theme is the importance of changing our perspective. Ray Clow says, ditch the gossiping. I mean, what does it say about U.S. when we do that? And he says, stop blaming stuff outside of ourselves because we create our circumstances.
You know, if we think about it in terms of that whole locus of control thing, internal versus external, it makes sense. Self-esteem comes from feeling like we're in control of our own lives.
Right. Now, he also has this whole section on mastering your inner world, which sounds really important. Can we dig into that a little?
Of course. So this is about dealing with things like guilt, quieting that inner critic we all have and learning how to actually accept compliments gracefully.
He calls guilt, quote, unnecessary suffering. And I thought his point about how we're often conditioned to feel guilty was fascinating. What do you think about that?
It does make you wonder, right? Like how much of our guilt is actually like legitimate and how much is just learned behavior. And then, that whole negativity bias our brains have, we tend to dwell on bad stuff more than good stuff.
Oh, it's like our brains have Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive, right? Reklow also makes this really interesting point about accepting compliments. He says, a lot of times when we push away praise, it's not humility, it's actually insecurity.
Hmm. That's a subtle but really powerful point. It makes you want to rethink how you react to praise. And then Rekla moves into this whole idea of authenticity. He says like true self-love is not the same as being selfish.
And that really fits with the whole self-compassion thing,
Yeah,
right? Like
right.
treating ourselves as kindly as we'd treat a good friend.
Right. He's saying we need to accept our imperfections, stop trying to please everybody.
Mhm.
And he has this 50-50 rule, which I thought was interesting. It's okay if, not everybody likes this.
It's kind of freeing, right? I mean, obviously it's good to have like a few people whose opinions we trust to give us honest feedback, but filtering out all the other noise is so important.
Absolutely. And then Reklau gets into this whole connection between happiness and self-esteem.
They definitely go hand in hand, don't they? He talks
Yeah.
about becoming a benefit finder instead of a fault finder.
Oh, that's such a good distinction. And, that ties into gratitude practices. There's actual science behind it, how it can like rewire our brains to focus on the positive.
Rekla also says it's important to like celebrate our victories, even the small ones.
Right. Those little wins add up. They help us believe in ourselves. And then he moves into this whole mind-body connection thing. He's really big on this holistic approach, how our self-esteem is tied to how we treat our bodies.
He's a firm believer in me time, isn't he?
Mhm.
Like it's not selfish, it's necessary.
Right. And of course, he talks about exercise, but he goes beyond like the usual stuff. He even mentions the study from Duke University that found exercise was as effective as antidepressants for treating depression.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. It really shows you how much our physical state affects our mental state.
And when you look at the neurochemicals involved, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Exercise releases all these mood-boosting chemicals like endorphins, dopamine, all that good stuff. So beyond all these fundamental principles, Reklau also gets into some more advanced techniques for boosting self-esteem.
He talks about affirmations, right? He gives some good examples in the book.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed things about affirmations. Some people think they're amazing. Others think they're totally useless. What's Reclau's take?
Well, he connects it to neuroplasticity, which is like the brain's ability to change based on our thoughts and actions. So, like, if we consistently repeat positive affirmations, we can actually create new neural pathways, and that reinforces those beliefs.
That's pretty cool. And he talks about visualization, too. He even explains the science behind it, how our brains have a hard time distinguishing between what's real and what's imagined. So we can actually use visualization to help ourselves grow.
Right. And he talks about the power pose research, which is a great example of how even our physical posture can affect how we feel inside. It's something people can try right away.
That is fascinating, how something so simple can be so powerful. But, let's be real. We're all going to experience setbacks. Rekla doesn't shy away from that, does he?
Nope. He's very clear that failure is like a lie. It's just part of the learning process.
So instead of seeing it as a defeat, we should look at it as a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly. And that's all about resilience, right? Our ability to bounce back from challenges is a huge part of self-esteem.
Oh, and that story he tells about the employee who cost their company $1 million.
Yeah.
It's so memorable, and it's actually really encouraging. It shows how even when we mess up big time, there's still hope.
Yeah, it's a great illustration of how we can turn even massive setbacks into valuable lessons. And then, Reklau ends by talking about the importance of forgiveness.
Forgiving others, and I think even more importantly, forgiving ourselves. It's like we have to let go of that baggage to really move forward.
And that ties back to self-acceptance, which is really the foundation of healthy self-esteem.
So it sounds like letting go, forgiving ourselves, really accepting who we are, that's really key to building real self-esteem.
It is. It's huge. And Reklau ends with this really beautiful message. He says we need to treat everyone, and that includes ourselves, with kindness and respect.
I love that. So as we wrap up our look at Marc Reklau's Love Yourself First, what are some of the biggest things you hope our listeners will take away from this, especially those who are really working on boosting their self-esteem?
Well, first of all, I think it's clear that building self-esteem is like an ongoing journey, right? But the payoff is totally worth it. One of the things Reklau says that's really stuck with me is, quote, self-concept is destiny. And that just makes you think, if we really believe we deserve good things, how does that change how we act, how we see the world, even the opportunities that come our way?
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? If we believe in ourselves, we're more likely to take chances, to actually go after the things we want. So by changing how we see ourselves, we actually can change our destiny.
Exactly. That's really the heart of what Reklau's saying.
So there you have it, a deep dive into Love Yourself First. We've just scratched the surface here, though. Really encourage you to read the book for yourself. But for our listeners who are ready to get started, what are, say, 10 of the most important points they should keep in mind?
All right, so 10 key takeaways from Love Yourself First. Number 1, self-esteem affects everything. It's not just a feeling, it impacts our relationships, our work, our happiness, even our sleep. Number 2, a lot of psychological problems actually stem from low self-esteem, so addressing that is really crucial. Number 3, we can change our story no matter what's happened in the past. We have that power. Number 4, this is an interesting one. Work on the things you like the least. It might sound counterintuitive, but it's a great way to challenge yourself and grow. Number 5, take ownership of your actions and your decisions. Don't just blindly follow advice from people who aren't actually living by what they're preaching.
I like that, walk the walk.
Right, exactly. Okay, number 6, be a benefit finder, not a fault finder. And practicing gratitude can help a lot with that. Number 7, master your inner world. That means tackling guilt, quieting that inner critic, and learning to accept compliments. Number 8, embrace authenticity and self-love. It's not selfish, it's essential. Number 9, remember the mind-body connection. Take care of yourself, make time for self-care, and exercise. And finally, number 10, don't be afraid of failure. It's It's not the end. It's a chance to learn and grow.
Those are great. I hope these takeaways will give our listeners sort of a roadmap as they begin their own journey of self-discovery and building their self-esteem.
Absolutely. And we always love to hear from you. So head over to our social media and share your thoughts. What resonated with you? What are you going to put into practice?
Until next time, remember the power is within you to create a life you love, a life filled with confidence and real fulfillment.